All right, moving on. Two other topics I want to talk about. First one here. The Steelers are working through cap space issues. They're roughly anywhere from $14 to $17 million over the estimated salary cap, depending on who you ask and where you look. There's obviously options to get below that. Chooks Okorafor is a big one. Allen Robinson saves you like $10 million. Patrick Peterson saves you somewhere in the realm of $6 million. You could keep going. Keanu Neal saves you $2 million, and I think his dead cap is like $35,000, something crazy like that. Not realistically, but it's definitely under $1 million. Another name that's been tossed out there by Bleacher Report is Larry Ogunjobi, who takes on a $13 million cap hit this season. The Steelers could save somewhere around $6 million if they cut him before June 1st. After June 1st, it's like $9.75 million. Good name, but unfortunately, who are you going to replace him with? That's the big question. Was Larry O on your mind when you were thinking of cap cuts? And now that you hear it, has anything changed?
Yeah, he wasn't kind of on my radar. But I think it seems like more of a possibility the more I think about it. I think it kind of depends on what they do with Montravius Adams. But it's just a big number that he takes on. Yes. $6 million is a lot of money. They can save even more if they cut him after June 1st. It's just an interesting spot because I think Larry O's good, and I don't think you're going to upgrade at that position, or I think it's hard to upgrade at that position, especially if you're also looking to save money. So that's kind of like where I'm at. I'm like, the way I look at it is like you kind of got to spend money to make this defense good enough. So I feel like this is kind of a worthy investment for the Steelers. Like I like Larry O. I mean, I know he gets hurt. I know he's got some injury concerns, but I think he's productive when he's on the field. And I think he plays an important position, a position that the Steelers need some depth at. Some starting quality, some starting quality depth. And I feel like that's what Larry O gives you. I know he's not, he's not a Pro Bowl or an all-pro guy, but he's capable of starting and being productive when he's in there. And I think just when you think about everyone else on the defensive line, when you think about, Cam Hayward's situation and everything like that, I feel like they need a guy like Larry O.
Yeah, I kind of agree. Like, it's a tough spot to cut him because you're taking such a step back if you cut him. If you're able to draft somebody early enough, like if they take a first-round defensive lineman, okay. At that point, you're like, sounds good. Right. Start the rebuild now. But you got to imagine Cam's got 1 year left on his deal. This is probably the last year of Cam Hayward. And even if it's not, you have to think that way because the guy's 34, 35 years old. Keanu Benton could move into one of those roles. I think he should move into one of those roles whenever either Cam or Larry O is gone. But at that point, you're hoping Montravius Adams comes back, that you could re-sign him. And you're also hoping that he doesn't get hurt because you got nobody behind him that's worthy of starting and being in that starting role. I think that you have almost no depth if you cut him. Because DeMarvin Leal, he's not a guy. I don't think he's even part of the future right now if you ask the Pittsburgh Steelers. Isaiah Loudermilk's entering, I believe, the final year of his rookie deal. That's a major question mark, and he's not really starter capable right now for the Pittsburgh Steelers. People are talking about Armon Watts. Got to bring Armon Watts back. Even if you do, he's not a starter, and he's not a starter for the Pittsburgh Steelers. I just think that you have quality depth. Why would you ruin that quality depth for a guy that you don't have to get rid of? There's so many other ways to go about it, and like the Steelers have options. I think that's the biggest thing here. Is it's not like, oh well, they're so far above the salary cap, they got to get below it. It's unreal how quickly and how hard it's going to be to get below it. They've been in that situation before. That's not where they are right now. You're going to cut Allen Robinson, most likely. That's $10 million. You're going to get rid of Chooks, whether it's a trade or you're just going to release him. That gets you above the salary cap. Boom. You got $2 million to work with. You need a lot more money than that. Restructure TJ Watt. You restructure Cam Hayward. You restructure Alex Highsmith. You restructure Minkah Fitzpatrick. Boom. You probably just saved, anywhere from $10 to $15 million right there. You're working with money at that point, and you got to come up with more and you got to find other ways to go about it. But I think Larry O was pretty far down the list before I'm like, oh, okay, look, you got to start, or you got to cut Larry Ogunjobi and that's got to be your guy. I just think that there's so many ways around that deal and that situation that, I mean, you're just like Mitch Trubisky is on the roster. Like you're cutting him well before you're cutting Larry O. I think he's too far down the list to consider him right now.
Yeah. And like, I don't know, to be honest, like I see the New Orleans Saints like every week there, every
Yeah.
offseason. There's a headline about like, oh, the Saints are in cap hell. Like they are never going to be able to like keep this roster together. And it's
Yes.
like, and somehow they figure it out by the time training camp starts. Like I don't know. Like I
No,
think
the
the
salary
Steelers
cap's
can.
not real. It's a myth.
Yeah, that's what I'm saying. Like it's not real. Money's not real. Don't even worry about it. Ever since we got off the gold standard, it's not real. But
It's
no,
true.
yeah, like there are a bunch of guys that you would consider cutting where I feel like you could save even more money, and I like Larry O is like I'm not cutting guys at positions of need. Like I get the need to
No.
save money, but you're not doing it at a place where you actually need a player like him. You know, you got to be smart with it.
Yeah, exactly. There's so many other ways to go about it first. And look at if you find yourself in that situation, or if you find yourself where you had a hell of a draft and a hell of an offseason and you got two great defensive ends sitting on your roster right now, and you're going, oh, we don't really need a $13 million cap hit from Larry. Oh, cool. At that moment you make the move. But right now, as the Pittsburgh Steelers sit, I don't even think I'd consider him. And the other names on that list were Mitch Trubisky and Allen Robinson. Like, I think it's such a drastic drop to go from, you should probably cut your $10 million old wide receiver. You should probably cut your third string quarterback. And then you should probably cut your starting defensive end. That's probably
Right.
where you should go from that one. I agree. Too far down I wouldn't worry about it if I'm the Pittsburgh Steelers. And this isn't a season, just like you said, dude, we've seen headlines where it's like, oh, the Saints are $150 million over the cap hit. And then nobody gets cut. And you're like,
Right.
how did they do that? How did that go? But how did that happen? The Steelers do it every year. Omar Khan is their GM. They will figure it out. I'm not worried about it whatsoever.